Welcome back to episode 8 of the Lead Gen Underground. Every Wednesday we go live at 4 p.m., approximately 30 minutes just to mastermind around a different topic. Could be anything from list building to top of the funnel tactics to cold calling to texting, anything like that. Today we are doing, the topic is virtual investing skills. So anything that fits under that umbrella, please feel free to ask questions about, to give your input about, chime in about. I am here with my friend Ryan. Ryan is in Philadelphia. Ryan, give us like a 30-second, 45-second overview of what you do in your business and all that kind of good stuff.
So I do mostly wholesaling and wholetailing. A few major rehabs, but hate it. Been doing it for about 8 years now, since 2012. That's basically it. I mean, I do some virtual deals, but few and far between. Most of my business is set the appointments, go out to the property, lock it up in person, go from there.
Got it. So you're mostly in person still. What is your average price point where you're getting something under contract? And then what is your average spread, would you say?
So the average price point varies depending on neighborhood of Philadelphia, but somewhere between 30 and 80,000 bucks is probably the biggest pocket. And then they rehab, they go for like 2 to 250.
Very good.
It's obviously bigger and smaller, but the average spread over the past 6 months or so, I think it's around 14 and a half.
Good for you. Good for you. Philadelphia is a pretty hot market, as I understand it. Where do you see it in terms of incline, decline, like before the whole coronavirus thing? Are you guys still red hot up there? How would you describe the market?
Yeah. I mean, over the last couple of years, it's just been pretty crazy. Investors are buying like crazy. Retail people are buying like crazy still. Spring market should have been super hot.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to affect it, which really sucks because I have a bunch of properties that are about to hit the market.
Nice.
Buyers, but I guess we'll find out.
All wholesale stuff about to hit the market?
Yeah, I have about 4 that should hit the market. Well, it's supposed to hit the market in the next 2 weeks.
Wow. And so a wholesale, what's that look like for you? How much are you putting into a wholesale? Because when I think wholesale, I think 5-7 grand. Some people are telling me up to like 40 grand.
Broke up a little bit there, but I think your question was how much, like what kind of rehab, what I spend on rehab?
Yeah, sorry.
So it varies, but it's usually between 10 and I'd say 30 is the max.
10 and 30. Okay, very good. Very good. And so today, I wasn't sure exactly what to talk about today, but it's very timely. The things that are happening with the coronavirus, you guys are like, self-quarantined or whatever, I'm sure around the country, wherever you're joining from. Let me know in the comments where you guys are joining us from today. I'd like to see if it's the same everywhere. Is everyone supposed to be self-quarantined or social distancing or whatever we want to call it? In my state, they've shut down the bars and restaurants and gyms and, all that kind of stuff. No churches allowed and all that kind of stuff. So no gatherings over 50 people is what's going on. I'm still in my office today. I have one of my guys with me. My wife has made the executive decision. She's also my business partner. She's also made the executive decision to tell our nanny to stay home. Now she's home with our girls for the next 2 weeks or so. Central Florida, we're working from home. Gyms, bars, and restaurants closed. In McAllen, Texas. Okay, cool. So we got people from all over the place so far. All right, Ryan, tell us about I know you go out in person in Houston, Texas. That's awesome. Houston's a friggin' hot market too. Ryan, you're going out in person, and there's Bob from Frederick right up the road from me. You're going out in person, traditional appointments, and then getting them under contract that way. How many appointments are you normally doing in a week, or your team, or whatever?
I think our average appointments right now is about 6 or 7.
Okay, very good. And then how many contracts do you expect to get like per month?
We shoot for like 1 to 2 a week, but I think per month it's probably, we're doing right now maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, very good. And what are your normal marketing and lead gen channels? Are you using a lot of mail, cold calls, texts?
Our biggest one is direct mail. We do text, but I'd say it's only like 1 of those 6 deals comes from that a month.
Cool.
Cool. That's pretty much it. We don't do any PPC or anything like that at the moment.
Cool. Okay, so we're kind of similar. We're not doing much mail, but we're doing a lot of cold calling and then some text. And just for us, I know that since the beginning of the year, our texting has fallen off of a cliff. Last year we were lighting it up, doing pretty well. And then this year, I think a lot of people have joined Sherpa and some of these other platforms, and it's very accessible, right? And now they're getting, people's phones are just getting blown up. So we've pulled back off of that a lot. But I think in terms of cold calling and direct mail, we might be in a good position to move forward with this whole coronavirus or lockdown thing. Direct mail, they're going to get that mail and then they're inside all day long. So they're either going to throw it away or set it aside, hopefully get a lot more time with their eyes. And then cold calling, same kind of thing. They're inside, right? And we're hitting the landlines now and everyone's home. So the contact rates should be really good. That's what we've seen this week anyway. Talk about how what's your ideal shift to some virtual offers, or what do you hope to get to, at least in the short term here, while we're having this little disruption? What's your goal, or what do you want to get to?
So I know some of the big guys love the virtual wholesaling model, and it's awesome the fact that you don't have to. There's guys in my market that do it too, but you never have to visit the property, right? Which saves in my specific market from where my office is, right outside of Philadelphia, to all the places that we actually buy properties in, is about 2 hours per house, right? Because it takes me about 2.5 hours, 45 minutes to get to the property, half hour, 45 minutes to get out, half hour at the appointment. We can strip that down to a 30-minute phone call, right? Yeah. So it would save us a ton of time. And right now, the way my team works is that we have an intake guy, so a guy who handles all the intake from the leads. He sets the appointments. He builds rapport and explains how our company works. And then we have an outside guy, right? A guy who specifically only goes on appointments, locks up deals, and stuff like that. He also does some dispo stuff like the showings and stuff that we have to. But I mean, if I could have him just locking up deals over the phone, we could do way more, right? The capacity is huge. So
absolutely. And so are you guys cold calling at all right now, or?
No, we don't cold call.
Okay, cool. And so that might be one of the first major shifts that I would say, you guys could take advantage of. I'm sure you have a lot of lists and stuff like that. One of the things that we're doing right now pretty heavily is cold calling. I have 3 people calling for me. And I'm actually, 2 of the guys in the office are new. We're working them through getting them to the stage of being lead managers, inside sales reps, whatever you want to call them. And so we're working with ZenCall right now. ZenCall has been really, really good for us. You can dial up to 12 lines at a time. So the connection rates are really high and you always have someone on the phone. The second resource that I would recommend to starting out going virtual is Paul from Philadelphia was recommended this to me. He's in fuel, and he recommended bpophotoflow.com, bpophotoflow.com. And so with this is where you can really start to leverage your time. You can take back your outside guy who's not going outside right now and put him on the phones, and then you can leverage BPO Photo Flow to go on your appointments for you. And so for, I think it's $24.50, they will call the customer up to 3 times to set a mutual appointment. That's good for both of them. Or if it's on Lockbox, it's a few bucks less, but they'll go over and they'll take, I think, up to 40 pictures, and then they'll deliver them within like 48 hours of taking the pictures. So at that $23.50, you'll get a turnaround time normally of 3 to 6 business days. You can order a rush on it, but for like $24, it's such an unbelievable value. You can start to leverage your time a little bit more.
Crazy.
Is that available everywhere?
Who was talking in the background? Go ahead.
Sorry, is that available in all the markets?
You'll have to check in your market and see if it is or not. I know it's not available everywhere. And the thing about them is they will only let you order if they have a rep within 7 miles of that address. So they let reps only go out 7 miles from their home address, which is pretty cool because it keeps them pretty nimble and it keeps them moving quickly. And so it's a flat fee. And then if they're like 9 miles outside, you can pay them a small incentive to actually go out and take your pictures.
Is that called, and that's again called B as in boy, P as in Paul, O as in
Oscar.
Oscar. Okay. I got
BPOphotoflow.com. Yeah. And so check it out. Let me know what you guys think. In this year alone, we've probably done about 75 or 80 orders like this year so far, and it's been really good for us. It makes everything that you do virtually, it makes it a lot more scalable. Anthony says 9 reps in Orlando. So again, like as the topic of today, virtual investing, virtual wholesaling, that makes it a lot more scalable. You don't have to go find someone on Craigslist to go out and take your pictures for you. Just plug right into that system. Try it for a few properties and let me know what you guys think.
What do you do about the dispo?
I mean, dispo, I have a guy, one of my VAs in the Philippines he builds our buyers list for us. He creates all of our off-market listings. He's organizing all the pictures, writing the descriptions. He calls our buyers, that kind of thing.
I mean, the physical showing part, do you send somebody out for that?
I mean, normally that's me if it's not on a lockbox. So I'm trying to get that handled with an agent right now currently, like trying to button that up a little bit. But typically it's either been on a lockbox and we can send them out if it's vacant. And then the other like product that I sell a lot is turnkey stuff. So stuff that's already rented or stuff that's really close to being rented. And typically with that, I sell it to like one of 3 guys. They'll buy on pictures alone. They never even go see the property.
Love those guys.
Yeah, definitely. Have I seen a decline in cold calling? I heard it was dropping. I personally have not, but I switched over from Mojo to Zen Call this year. And so I took it from a triple line dialer up to, it goes 12 to 20 lines at a time. And I've had, this past year, I went and took Rafael Vargas's boot camp earlier in the year. Scripts got a lot tighter. Our qualification process got a lot better. And then I've done a few things to allow me to focus on sales a lot. So personally, we have seen the results of cold calling just go really, really go a lot better this year than they did last year for us personally. So Ryan, let's talk a little bit about on the phones and how we would start to use cold calling to like qualify and to make offers and that kind of thing. Tell me what you guys are doing to qualify on the phone kind of right now before you're getting out to an appointment. Like what are the things that you're asking to make sure that there's sufficient motivation?
I'm actually training on this right now. But I mean, the usual. So I have 3 things that I specifically want to know. And I tell them this, but we have a whole script, mostly based off Don Martinez's stuff.
Yep.
But the 3 most important things for me are, I want to know the condition of the property. I always try to get the asking price. And then I always try to get some sort of motivation for why.
Okay.
So those are the 3 things that I want to know.
Yep. You're right in the ballpark. Yep. So we ask, right off the bat, I'll tell you guys that we separate. One of the big shifts that we've made this year is a difference in prospecting and then qualification. And those are 2 different roles. So it's like someone who's on the phone initially, a cold call or whatever, is prospecting just to find out if it's a lead. Is it a lead? You want to sell your home? You want to get a cash offer? Yes, means it's a lead. And then qualification is when we're going through and then going and asking the questions that you just asked. We ask an extra one. We ask 4 pillars of motivation in this order. We'll always ask, if we could line up on the dollar signs and the other important details, why you think, or when are you thinking of selling? When would be ideal? So if you ask when someone wants to sell, I found that is equivalent to the level of motivation.
Agreed.
So if someone says, well, no real rush, you called me, I don't know, there's no motivation. If they say today, yesterday, tomorrow, 30 days, 14 days, their motivation's pretty high. So we always ask, when ideally would you like to sell? The second thing is we ask, sounds like a nice property. Why the heck are you thinking about selling it now? Third's condition. And then 4th is finance. So we're asking their equity, John Martinez style. Hey, Mr. Seller, I guess you don't know how much you owe on it still, do you? And then everyone knows, so they tell you. And then and then follow up and say, well, what do you think a fair price is or a fair offer is for your house? So those are the things we ask on qualification. Nothing too different than what you ask, right?
Yep.
Okay. So once you know those 4 things, what's your next step right now when you're doing your traditional appointments and such?
So the caller, the guy who answers the phones and builds rapport, then sets an appointment if the person's motivated. I don't really have them look at comps too much to see if we're in the same ballpark range first. I just say, hey, look, the person's motivated. They have a reason to sell it. They want to get rid of it. They want to sell in the next 30 to 60 days. Set the appointment. Once that's set, then goes to my acquisition outside guy. So then he will confirm the appointment. And when he confirms, looks at the comps previous to that. He'll confirm that their asking price isn't bananas. If it is, we'll do a range on the phone before he goes out in the appointments. But if there's high motivation, That's what happens. He sets, he confirms, then he goes out to the house.
Okay. And so how many of those do you, just loosely, what would you guess that, you know, he thinks is an appointment and then sets it, but then finds out the comps are way too far off and screens it out? Like, how many out of 10 would you guess you guys are screening out?
Yeah, honestly, it's a lot, like half.
That's good. That's really good. Because guys, if you didn't my friend Greg Helbeck has told me this in many conversations, that the longer he's been in sales, the more he finds out that sales is actually a disqualification process, not a qualification. In other words, in your head, starting a qualification would be like starting from zero and building up all the credentials and saying, yeah, I'm really excited about this. Yeah, that sounds like a great lead. And then disqualification would kind of be like assuming that, you know, just asking them the questions and seeing which ones they can flag themselves to tell you, no, I'm not motivated. So a timeline would be like, well, you know, maybe a year, boom, disqualified. Or if they're asking a retail price, boom, disqualified. And the harder you can disqualify them up front and focus your time on the really, really strong leads, I think the more successful you'll be in your business. Would you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's talk about now, you know, again, for virtual, let's talk about how we might be able to transition from that appointment to bringing that back in-house. What kind of questions do you have about like how other people do it, or maybe how you see yourself doing it in your business?
So let me explain how I've done it in the past, and because I do some stuff over the phone. Obviously, there's out-of-state sellers and stuff. So typically, we would negotiate over the phone. I would give them an offer, obviously, because I have to, because I can't go to the house. And then I would just send them a DocuSign contract. I use .loop actually, but and then pray it comes back, right? And follow up the next day, follow up the next day, follow up the next day, right?
Good.
And it works, especially for out-of-state sellers. And if I get the vibe that they're not trying to get a bidding war going with 12 other people, which is always my biggest concern with those over the phone offers, is like how many other people are they talking to and getting offers. So my transition in a house, you can get it signed right in front of them because you're in their face, right?
Yep.
There's no waiting period. There's no, oh, I didn't get your email, or, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. Oh, I didn't see it. I want to look over it again. That kind of BS, right? The house is done. So my biggest fear in transitioning to virtual wholesaling is the waiting period where they have time to think about it and go to somebody else and take my offer of $90,000 and shop it to someone else and do the 91. So my biggest question would be in your script, how are you forcing your seller, not forcing, but how are you getting these sellers to sign while you're on the phone with them in front of your virtually?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be perfectly frank with you, that's always, in my experience, it's can be very sticky, can be very tricky to get them to sign right then. Some people want to run it past their lawyer. You never want to hear that. Some people want to show it to their husband or their wife, understandable. And then some people just want to read over it, right? So in my experience, the most motivated people go ahead and sign it like that. I personally don't have them sign it, or I haven't had great success with them signing it while I'm right on the phone. Though right before the call, we were talking a little bit about this. And typically, let me just back up and go through how I'm basically making the offers, and then we can kind of take it from there. But just as a high level overview, when I have the 4 pillars of motivation, I know kind of where they're at in terms of price. And so when I'm looking to come up with that price, I'm looking on the MLS and just doing all sold, a radius search like right around them, and just seeing what kind of numbers. And at that point, then I'm reading off those numbers, trying to find the lowest ones first and reading off those numbers to them. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I see here in the last year, it looks like things on your block have sold for 32, 42, 29, 46. Is that kind of what you're expecting? And then, you know, if they go and say, oh, hell no, mine's worth 150. Well, Mr. Seller, I'm just telling you what other things have sold for. Why do you think it's, you know, selling for so much, or why do you think it's so much? And so I'm giving them those numbers that way. That's a very quick way to disqualify on the phone and get the tire kickers out. Because again, you're not giving them your opinion at that point. You're not saying, I think your house is worth. You're just saying, I'm looking at what is actually sold and here are the numbers, right? And so that has really given myself and my team a big boost, because it's taken a little bit of the fear out of it, right? Like, what if they reject my offer, or they think whatever? You're just telling them the facts and then they're reacting. So if they say, oh yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting, we're moving forward. Okay. I'll ask a few more questions. Well, when's the last time you did the roof? How old is the furnace? When's the last time you updated the kitchen? When's the last time you updated the bathrooms? And then I'll narrow that. I will narrow that. Yeah, Anthony said, set the low anchor. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so it doesn't even have to be the exact same house that I'm giving them prices for. But the fact is I'm showing them their block or something around it and showing them some low prices of what's actually sold. So when I'm zooming in on the offer a little bit, initially I'll give them those numbers, and then I would say, well, I think my offer would probably be somewhere in the range of 29 to 36 based on what you're telling me. Is that kind of what you expected, Mr. Seller? And then boom, if they say no, or they give me a price, basically my next move is just to say, well, Mr. Seller, it seems like, if we could come up to the price, if we could meet you at somewhere between 29 and 36, it might be a deal from you. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you? Again, let them respond back. If they confirm, then it's just me saying, okay, Mr. Seller, well, look, here's what I want to do. I've gotten all this information from you. I want to go speak with my partner. And this is always my line, guys. I'll say, sometimes it surprises me what my partner likes and what my partner doesn't like. If we're lower than that 29, should I even call you back? Should I even bother calling you back? And 9 out of 10 times, those people are going to say yes. So what have you done? You've just gotten their permission to give them a lower offer than what they actually wanted. And so then I'm coming back later. We'll set what Steve Trang calls clear future. And I'll say, okay, Mr. Seller, is it fine if I give you a call back in 30 minutes? Oh no, give me a call back at 4:30 today. Okay, Mr. Seller, I'll give you a call back at 4:30 today where we can talk about my cash offer, like down to the dollar. Okay? Okay, talk then. And so I'm always breaking it up over a few calls. And I found that what that does is build rapport. It builds a little bit of anticipation, and it also builds some momentum, because then when you call back, it's not like, hello, it's like, hey, Ryan, how you doing, man? Yeah, you have a good day? Okay, good. It's the second or third time they've heard your voice in the period of a couple of days. And then when it comes down to the actual offer, I'm explaining all the benefits up front, talking about how, if they sold with an agent, it would be this much less, how we're covering closing costs and what that percentage might look like. And then I always just present my offer and say, Mr. Seller, the number that I keep coming to is $32,400, but I'm not sure if that would work for you. And then just shut up and listen to what they say. So that's basically my process in a nutshell of how I'm like presenting the offers. Is that, you got any questions like about that, or where do you want to go into?
No, I mean, our presentations are similar to what I do in person and what you do. Obviously, it's a little bit different because I give them the offer right there. But in closing at the house, I won't give them the offer if they're not ready to sign. So it seems like from what you're saying, you have a good strategy where you have the callback thing to try to get them ready to sign, which is, I guess, what I'm looking for. The offer in the house, your phone call where you hang up would be me leaving, not telling them the offer. I'll give them a range. But if I say to the seller, hey, well, let me ask you a question. I can probably put something together today, but if I do, are you willing to sell the property today? Like, how soon do you want to do this? And if they're like, no, well, I'd have to talk to my wife, or no, I'd have to talk to my attorney, or no. They're like, that's awesome. And I give them the contract and I go over with them and I say, hey, talk to who you ever want to talk to. And when you're ready to actually, I can give you the price, but it's silly for us to negotiate now because you can't give me a yes or no answer. I apologize if you hear my daughter sing.
Yeah, no worries.
So if they can't give me the offer, they can't give me an answer, I postpone it, right? So I'm like, all right, take my contract, review with whoever you want, call me when you're ready to actually negotiate on the price. So, and then I'll set another meeting to lock it up in person. But I guess it's similar. What you're doing, you're just doing the exact same thing, phone call after phone call after phone call, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
If you're not ready now, let's do it later. If you're not ready now, let's do it later.
Yeah, and that's another important point that you said, though, that up front, you're kind of throwing them like a boomerang. You're saying, well, if I could come out and we could agree on the price, are you even ready to sign? That's another very important point, guys, is that before you even make them an offer, after you've, discussed a range and stuff, I will use the line like, Mr. Seller, if we could offer you that, that 39 that you really wanted and we could settle in 30 days, is there any reason why you wouldn't be ready to sign today? And listen to what they say. So that's another really important way to disqualify upfront and make sure you're not wasting your time. That's a good point.
Yeah, I think you kind of covered what I was hoping for, though. felt like I was trying to articulate that into a call, because I felt like in a call I'm forced to give them my offer because there's no reason. Like when I first talked to them and I set the appointment, my leverage is, hey, I have to see the property first before I can get you an exact number, so I can get them in the house, get the paper from them, and be like, here's the pen, let's do this. On a call, your equivalent is, hey, I'll call you back with that exact number. How's this right now? Let me check with my partner. I'll call you back. So I like that strategy. It's very similar to what I do, except for without an appointment, you do it with phone calls and multiple phone calls.
Yeah, absolutely. Another point of what I like to do is surround that customer with a few dimensions of me. And so what I mean by that is I'm calling, but after the first call, I'll even tell them before we hang up, all right, Mr. Seller, before we talk later today, when we get off the phone, I'm going to send you a link just about our company. And so that way you can read a little bit more about us and know who you're dealing with. And so what I'll actually send them, it looks like we're sending them just my straight URL to my homepage, but it's actually linked to the testimonial page. So right when it pops up, they click the link and boom, it's like reasons why people like working with Josh. And there's 12 videos in a row of everyone smiling, right? And so that's like the first dimension. The text is like the second dimension. And then if they go to our website and see my face, that's the third dimension. So by the time you call them back later, they've heard your voice on the phone. They know you're texting them. So they're like, oh, I got his cell phone number. I know him a little bit. And then boom, they're seeing the video. And then when you call back later, they're hearing your voice again. And it obviously links up with the videos. So going multi-dimensions like that is another important piece of going like virtual. That definitely helps.
So that's another big thing that's good you said that, because one of the biggest things I do with appointments is, and I tell my people this, is the biggest thing to get a contract is building trust. That's once they trust you, you have them, right? They have to trust you. And it's very hard to do over the phone when you're sitting in front of a person and you're telling them they're looking at pictures of your kids on your phone and you're shooting the shit about whatever. It's very easy to do in person. Over the phone, they don't know who you are. They don't see you. It's very hard to build trust. And I think that's a very good way to do it. So that was
absolutely. Absolutely. On the phone as well, like in person, in person, you're hoping that it comes to like that, that, for lack of a better word, that climax time where like you're going there and you're either signing or you're not, right? You're either signing or it kind of like fizzles away. Whereas on the phone, you can call them back an indefinite amount of times. And so one thing I think that's been important for me personally to remember has been to slow down and even talk a little bit slower and work through their process on their timeline. Because like you said, when you're talking on the phone, they don't know exactly who they're dealing with. I've had people say, wow, you can just buy it over the phone, or you can buy it without even seeing it. And I've gone to I had 3 closings this week. Yesterday, 2 of them, I've never even met the person. I've only talked to them on the phone like dozens of times. And one guy told me, well, up until the very end, he said, well, I'm still a little bit leery, to be honest with you, because I've never dealt with someone and they bought my house and I've never met them in person. I said, you know what? I can completely understand that. I really can. But so slowing it down and working on their pace is another kind of important part of doing this virtually.
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset I got to jump over, is trying to build rapport and get them to trust you and slowing down and get them to like you over the phone. Because like you said, in my head, they automatically think I'm like a scam if they don't need me.
Absolutely.
Me or someone anyway.
Especially the older folks, right? Like 50, 60 and over. They're getting used to their iPhones and stuff now, but they would still shaking your hand in person and whatnot. That's like the regular protocol for how they're used to dealing.
Speaking of that, what do you do when they're untechnology savvy and they don't want to have to give you an email or dot loop? You then send somebody out to take care of it at that point?
I just had this. I actually got a contract last month from a postcard I sent 3 years ago. And this guy called me up and basically I was like, we agreed on price. And I said, okay, what's your email? And he said, email? I don't even have the internet. And he lived out in the West Virginia mountains of West Virginia. And so basically I printed out contracts. On the contract, I filled in the details. I put Post-it notes like Miss Grace and Mr. Perry sign here, date here, read this, fill in this. And I overnighted it USPS. It cost me like $80. And then I had to put in the actual paid return envelope too to be tracked back. And so like, that's good point. That's what I just did.
It's a deal to spend $80 to send a contract, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to get it done real badly. So, yeah, send it over that way.
Good move.
Let's talk about some things that maybe neither of us have ever done. We're running out of time here a little bit, but let's talk about how we might be able to, in today's market right now, quarantine, let's talk about some other things that maybe we could use, perhaps like FaceTime, or perhaps getting the seller to send you pictures, or the seller to do a walkthrough video. Is that anything you had thought about or ever even used before?
Yeah, I've done it in the past for properties I was unsure of. So I could probably use the same tactics, but like a lot of these appointments where somebody will tell you they want hypothetically $75,000 for a house or something in my market, but it has to be really nice, and they tell you it's nice. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to go on the appointment because I don't really believe you. I don't say it like that, obviously. But I'm like, oh, you're going to be there anyway? Shoot a couple pictures from me and text them over to me before we set the appointment. In this case, it would be, hey, it's quarantine. We don't necessarily want to meet, right? So if you're going to the house anyway, just shoot some pictures. I can buy the house over the phone like that, so we don't have to ever meet. I feel like the quarantine, that gives you an excuse to not have to meet the person. It's probably more trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Anthony said we've done that too, but I hear of others using mobile notary to sign the contract. Yes, I've absolutely heard of that as well. Yeah. And we have them send pics. So my friend Annie from Batch told me when I first met her that they get people to send them pictures. That was before we started using the photo service. And she said they found that if they can get to the point of pictures, having that person take pictures or send them pictures, they're like 90% sure they're going to get the contract.
That's got to be pretty true. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they're going through all that and sending you pictures back, now how have you got them to send you pictures? Is it just back to your cell, or is it email, or?
Yeah, I feel like most older people, and I don't mean older, but let's go with like baby boomers, like 50, whatever that generation is, right? 50 plus, usually are pretty savvy with text messages. Not necessarily email or the internet, but they can usually take a picture with their phone and text it to you. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we are winding down, but last question here. So let's talk about any other tools, tips, tactics that you might want to use in today's market. Again, maybe a FaceTime or something like that. One thing that I'm starting to do that's really not technology based, but that I'm doing in today's market is reaching out to some other people to see if they have deals that we could work on together. And then also diving back into my dead leads. So not really counting on a ton of new leads coming in, even though we have a good flow, but I'm trying to be really conservative and dive in and get some of our old leads to see if I could perhaps capitalize on those. Are you doing anything similar, or?
Cut out for a sec.
Oh, sorry.
That's better. I did hear you.
So I'm diving back in to find old leads, and then working through with some other wholesalers, some other friends of mine that are investors, to see if we can work on leads together, starting to do more JV deals, just to keep that lead flow up, or to keep the deal flow up during this time. Anything else you're doing similar?
So, I mean, we follow up on old leads regularly. I don't do a whole lot of JV. If there is a JV, it's usually my deal to another wholesaler to their buyer. I very rarely am the buyer JV part. It's just